So it is 4 in the morning here, and I could not sleep. And so I was contemplating on, do I lay in the bed or do I get up and make this video? And I think sometimes you just have to be obedient. When God is telling you to do something, you need to move and you need to do it when He is speaking to you. And so I got up out the bed and I came in here and I cut on the camera and I promised that I would be authentic, my authentic self, and be as transparent as possible in telling you what I'm going to say and talk to you about today. So what I want to talk about today is deciphering God's voice. How do you know that the voice that you're hearing is God's voice? And for me, this is personal because I am in the midst of a life battle where I really need God's direction in terms of what to do next and how to move next. And I did this video before in being quite, like I said, in being transparent with you all. So I might share different excerpts from the video rather than repeating myself. But I wanted to talk to you today about deciphering the voice of God. How do you know that God is talking to you and it's not the adversary? And I'm excited. I get excited about this topic because I love when I hear God's voice. So I'm going to share with you three tips, or three, I guess, ways that you can know that you're hearing God's voice. But the first thing, God is telling me to share something with you right now. So before I even start this video, what I wanted to share with you is this. I know a lot of people say, and some people will challenge me on saying this, that in order to for God to hear your prayers, for you to be the closest to God, you have to fall on your knees. You have to do things. But I wanted to share with you that some of my closest moments with God, when we're having a vibe, when we're chit-chatting, I am by no way perfect. So when we're in a car and I'm driving, it's some of my closest moments with God. It's some of my deepest conversations with God, and not necessarily on my knees. So I'm saying this to say that it doesn't matter your surroundings, whatever works for you, because as long as you have that inner stillness, and we're going to talk about that in terms of hearing His voice, and you're focused, as long as you have those qualities, that you don't have to be on your knees. You don't have to, be falling around or whatever. So I just had to say that before I get started, is that some of my deepest conversations with God, some of my most clear moments occurred when I'm driving on my way to work. Turn the radio off and I have that conversation with God. It could be driving home from work. It could be at lunchtime. I'm going to get a cup of coffee at work. It could be late at night. When I get home from work, a lot of times I don't come right into the house. I will sit outside in my driveway and I will de-stress and talk to God and figure out, what am I going to do? What's my next move? I don't know how I'm going to handle this challenge. And God will kind of guide me. God will guide me and tell me what to do next, how to move. And then I have two choices. I can listen or not listen. But I just wanted to say that some of my most deepest conversations occur when I am in motion, when I'm moving between the day-to-day aspects of life. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you a video that I made a while ago. Actually, I made this video on February 27th, right after work one evening. I came home from work. I was sitting in my bedroom and I had to get it off of my chest. So I started reading some different Bible verses and just sat down and was like, okay, I'm ready to talk about how I learned how to hear God's voice. And so I want to share with you that video. We're going to flip over to that video right now where it's going to share with you how I am able to hone in on and decipher God's voice. And when you're able to hone in on and decipher his voice, and he's able to make moves in your life without you getting in the way, that is the most amazing thing. But one thing I want to add, which I didn't share in that video, is that sometimes we also struggle to hear his voice because we already have the answer of what we want him to say before we even ask him. So what we end up hearing is not necessarily his voice, but we hear what we want the answer to be. So in a nice way, sometimes we have to get out the way if we truly want to hear his voice and let him speak through us. So now I want to jump over into that video because it was just strong and powerful the way it was. Yes, I'm sitting on my bed in my bedroom with a candle going, but I went deep into the whys and the hows. So I think you're going to really enjoy the message. And then you can let me know in the comment section what you felt after. And if you can also try the different strategies, and it will be interesting to hear your feedback on how it worked, how God moved in your life. And I've been sitting here for about 5 minutes contemplating whether I'm going to take off my work clothes and get ready for bed or if I was going to make this video. And I decided to make the video. I want to share with you something that's really, really important to me on my walk. And I shared before that I am like by no means perfect. I am in the beginning stages of this walk. So I'm excited to be online and just learning from so many different content creators about their walk and how they continue to move and allow God to move in their lives. And so I wanted to share because this was always something that's been a challenge for me my entire life. How do you decipher the voice of God? How do you know that God is really talking to you and it's not the voice of the adversary? And I mean, I was digging, going to my book club study with my sister who happens to be a pastor, and you guys will meet her soon on this journey. But I was questioning and digging and challenging, and then I'd be like, oh, sit still, and you're gonna know the voice of God. And all of these different like I don't even know the word I'm looking for. All of these different tricks that people were giving me and saying to me that, you know, but no one ever actually gave me the secret. Today, I am going to share with you the secret to knowing that you are truly hearing the voice of God. And once I discovered this secret, boy, I knew when I didn't listen to that voice of God when he was talking to me and I chose the exact opposite, I can tell you that I did pay for it. So I wanted to share with you 2 scriptures before we get into knowing. So the first one is Psalm 46, verse 10. It says to be still and know that I am God. So one thing I want you to keep in mind as we're talking and I'm sharing with you is that if we are focused and not busy, not worldly, then we will be able to decipher and hear his voice. But I'm going to give you a definite trick that never fails. God's voice, you have to remember, is still. And so you can't be all over the place if you really want to hear and be able to decipher his voice, and not have it drowned out. And another scripture I want you to think about while we're talking is John 10, verse 27, when Jesus says, my sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. So when you walk in faith and you're a true believer, that is another key that I want you to think about as we're talking about being able to hear his voice, is that you have to be a true believer, internalize and believe what, first of all, that God is the one. He is our leader. You know, you have to truly, truly believe and not just say it, but you have to internalize it. And not just think that, oh, I believe, but I'm wavering kind of thing. So now, with that being said, right, the first verse talked about being still, which was a lesson that I had to learn the hard way. And the second verse talks about being a true believer. So how did I tap into the key of knowing that it was God's voice? I actually tapped into it by accident. God actually spoke to me and told me. And so I want you to, okay, I'm going to share the secret with you, but I actually want you, the next time you go have a conversation with God, to follow what I'm saying to you. And you're going to feel exactly what I feel. And it's going to bring you that much closer to knowing God on your spiritual journey, to become closer to him. So God's voice does not waver, and God's voice is still. It is to the point, and there is no wavering, there is no indecisiveness. God will say what he has to say, and that will be it. You have to be still and you have to hear it. There will be no extension. When you are hearing the voice of the adversary, there is wavering. There is indecisiveness. There is, you know you wanna, like that nudge. But when God is speaking, there's no nudge. It is, as we like to say, our young generation, it is what it is. And so a good example that I want to give you with this is when I went back to the physical church building, and I'm going to share another video about this journey. Everything in my life, in a nutshell, that could go wrong was going wrong. Okay? And I started to second guess, did I make the right decision? You know, I was having conversations. I was talking to people and they were saying, well, you know, the adversary comes in when you are trying to make moves. And so I said to God, one day. I said, God, where do I belong? And here it was. I was a true believer who wanted a real answer. And God said to me, you are where you're supposed to be at. And that was it. It was to the point. The second voice came in shortly thereafter, and it said, see, told you was better off at home. This is why you don't need to be in this building, because God is in your heart. You knew that before you came here. That voice, the adversary's voice, always wants to compromise and wants to challenge what God has already said. You know, you are talking to God. You are in a spiritual conversation with God, because God says what he has to say, and his word is final. It is what it is. There's no wavering back and forth. But when the adversary comes in, you're going to hear the indecisiveness. You're going to hear the challenges. The adversary may say a decision, but then he's definitely coming back with a reason why. And he's going to keep nudging and nudging and nudging. But God's voice doesn't waver. God's voice, as we said in the scripture, is still, but you have to be an internal believer. And if you're not, you are not going to be able to decipher between God's voice and the voice of the adversary. So what I want you to do, right? I want you to try this lesson and tell me what happens. I was driving home today from seeing my dad. He's in the hospital. And I was just like, oh my God, I need to share this message. I need to share the secret that was shared with me and how I know the difference. And trust me, when I choose the voice on the other side, the wavering voice, I learned the hard way that I didn't listen to what God wanted me to do. But I want you to try this exercise on the next. When you talk to God, give it to God and like, God, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? You know, and you're going to get two responses, but you have to be still, and you have to be a true believer. If you really want to hear God's voice, you have to be still, and you have to be a true believer. That's it for tonight. But I had to say that, I am glowing. I am loving this walk, this new journey. It feels different because it takes the control. It takes me out of control. I'm so used to being the one in control, making a decision. But I realize that I don't have the answers, and that a lot of the decisions that I was making when I didn't let God take the wheel were bad decisions, and they weren't decisions that were in my best interest. So that's it. Let me know how it turns out. And